Hi, for all two of you watching right now. Welcome to Grace Under Pressure, your, I don't know, fifth, sixth favorite semi-regular podcast, live cast, Facebook cast.
Very favorite.
I don't even know what to call it anymore. Featuring former royal consorts from around the known world. And I don't know about anybody else, but right now I'm feeling like a dried up husk of a former royal consort. As we watch the COVID numbers reemerge from the depths to which we previously had consigned them. So this week we are changing up our format just a little bit and going with a triple play. I think that's a baseball word, triple play. I think that's a sportsing thing. I don't know for sure, so I'm going to misuse it. And in this case, mean we are interviewing, or rather corralling, I don't know, herding cats today with three fantastic humans who happen to be really good friends. So this should be a laugh, and you may not want to let your kids listen. Next week on the show, we will be interviewing Duchess Eleanor de Bolton, who is now in the summits in the Kingdom of Vontier, and that will be super informative and interesting and cool because she is all of those things. So I hope you can join us. And now we will introduce ourselves. So I will start with my stunt co-host while Joel is still off playing Army. I say playing, but he really is in the Army and is off doing hard things that involve tents and snow, and I don't envy him. So we look forward to having him back. Ashaksi is my very good friend of many years and is a Laurel and is one of the two sisters of the Sisters Interview Network that is hosting this wonderful interview series, Grace Under Pressure. And she's also just a fantastic human. I've run out of superlatives for you really easily. Ashaksi
is drop dead, hilariously funny. I think I've laughed harder than ever in my life.
Yeah.
In the moments I've had a chance to hang out with her.
Getting her to roll around in laughter is sort of it's one of those skills that you just really need to develop because it's so worth it. So welcome, Ashaksi. Thank you so much for filling in again.
Thank you for having me. And this is our regular host, Duchess Laurel Vontier, formerly of the West. What can I say?
They borrowed me.
Yeah. And these three incredible women who are just so very inspiring and so very much fun. So welcome, ladies. Thank you for joining us tonight. Very excited to have you.
For having us.
Very much so. And as always, thanks to Rifkin and to Shaxi for hosting us on the Sisters Interview Network. I always want to put this in there. They have done so much for us during the plague times, and it really makes us all feel more connected as a community and also lets us continue to pass judgment on each other, which is, I mean, I don't know why you're in the SCA, but anyway. So let's move on to our guests today. So we have three fantastic humans in alphabetical order: Countess Adina, and Duchess Cyneswith and Duchess Kaaren. And while all three of them conducted their reigns in the West Kingdom, we own Kaaren now. She lives in Ontario, and she is ours, and we are not giving her back ever, ever, ever. So, but their reigns were all in the West Kingdom, which as people who've watched our previous interviews know, the Ontario and the West Kingdom enjoy a special relationship, and we have a hostage exchange program and also retirement program where when we find out that somebody's cool enough, we start sending them retirement literature for properties in Ontario. So if you haven't gotten yours yet, you just haven't quite crossed that line yet. So this interview should help. It really should. So I'm actually going to let the three of you, if you would, introduce yourselves because you have so many things in your OP listings. I don't even know where to start, but mostly Cyneswith, let's be honest. But also, I don't want to get any dates messed up. And because of the weird way that the West does their reigns, I probably will. So if you could just give us a very quick overview of who you are, when you reigned, and I don't know, what your favorite heraldic animal is.
Too many reigns for her to figure that out.
Yeah, I
should have Googled myself before we started.
Don't worry, people are now.
It's been a long freaking time. Who wants to go first? Are we going in alphabetical order? Do you think I'll go first?
Yeah, until you guys get drunk enough to be tired of that. So,
All right. Do
all
that.
right.
All right. I guess that means I go first. That's okay. I have the shortest OP. I'm Countess Adina. I read once. I'm the Johnson & Johnson of vaccines. Good enough. One and done. But it was a good time. And I don't know. I've lived in the West. I lived in Drachenwald, and I have, Kingdom Service Awards and Art Awards. But I'm not a peer other than my little royal peer thing. And I got to be a court baroness also for being fun at a party. So there you go. I think
also your tagline, if I may, no, never mind. We'll save that for later. I'll have taglines for all three of you.
Oh God, I can hardly wait. All right, I'll go next. I'm Duchess Cyneswith. I'm a Duchess Laurel Pelican. I've reigned 3 times as queen and twice as princess with 3 different dudes. I was Duke Fabian von Schwetzigen's first queen duchess. And then after that, I reigned as Princess of the Mist with Thorfinn the Cruel. And then I reigned as Queen of the West with Thorfinn the Cruel. And then I reigned as Princess of the Mist again with Evander, who is an awesome human, and you should all know him. Let's see, what can I tell you about myself? I have a crap ton of service awards and things. I've held multiple kingdom offices. I've been in the SCA forever. So yeah, been there, done that.
I'd say one of the things that we have in common, the 3 of us, is we're really good at talking each other into doing things.
Yeah. Case in point.
It's such a good point. I'd like to point out that I originally was talking, well, I've asked all 3 of these ladies to be on, ladies, I say that word, I really do mean that flexibly. I've talked with all 3 of these folks about being on this. I caught Adina on a good day. She said yes. And then I was like, hey, do you think there's any chance you could also talk these other people who've already said no to me also into this? And she did. It's, involuntary conscription is a skill that not everybody has. So
Cyneswith convinced me to take a kingdom office. Okay. Talk about talking someone into something.
Oh, she owes you.
Ever.
That's awesome. All right, Kaaren, you're up.
Okay, so I'm Kaaren. I'm a duchess. And I reigned, the first time was in a few years ago. And then 3 years later, I reigned again. And both times I reigned with pals, never with a sweetheart, which makes things, different than reigning with somebody you live with that you can just talk to over breakfast or whatever. And I don't have any other peerages, but I have the little you're helpful and you make pretty things awards. So
those are important.
I've never held an office. I'm not that kind of helpful.
So we didn't do a ton of prep. Our guests did prep together and put together a bunch of slides that are fantastic, and we're going to go through those. They also came up with a very bossy set of things that we are going to talk about. So we are totally off our normal script, which is fine because it's going to be much more fun this way. As Shaxi put it, it's going to be chaotic neutral fun, which is totally a thing.
I just want to clarify. When you say we put together an outline, Adina put together an outline. She has PR experience. Clear. She couldn't help herself.
That's great. That's fantastic. But it's really good. And it does keep us mostly on track. But there will probably be things mentioned that are West Kingdom specific. And if folks, as they're listening, aren't clear what they're talking about, feel free to heckle them in the comments. And one of us will try and make our way over there and look at them. It's not perfect, though. So you may need to wait until our guests go and look at the comments themselves to respond to your questions, your prompts, your reminders, your admonitions, whatever it is. So I think, why don't we get started right away with the pictures? It sounds like that's probably going to be, that's what it says, the 3 nice pictures. I don't know what that means. So I'm just going to put the pictures up and then they can tell me if, okay, we're done with pictures right now. So I did want to ask you guys really quick though, because I do want to do one thing that we normally do. And that is, if you could tell me, what are ways that you feel you've made the SCA more inclusive, or that you've used your privilege and your powers for good in the SCA in ways that help people feel included and engaged and involved, other than getting any kind of police activity at an event or anything like that? So that doesn't count.
You're starting off with the easy question, I see.
Well, because we're going to go so downhill from here that I wanted to start at a high note and have everybody be like, talk about all these like lovely ideas they have for an inclusive SCA, and then we can move right into the terror and horror of it.
Well, I think that's the point. I mean, one of the things that brings the three of us together and the common thread between us is that we all believe in prioritizing the populace having a good time. And that no matter what else is happening, that we all really leaned into the idea that, you know, we're all here to have a good time. We're all the hosts, we're the host of the party. And it's our responsibility to do everything that we can to make as many people have as good a time as possible.
Exactly. Exactly. No matter what garbage is going on behind the thrones, the populace doesn't need to know that. They don't need to be bogged down with that. That's our burden. It's our burden to take care of all the nonsense that happens behind the throne. And when we step out from behind the throne and present to the populace that it's happy fun time and that everybody's here, everybody's having a good time, everybody's loved.
Yes, exactly. One of the things I like to do in my reigns was include children a lot in helping out behind the thrones and stuff, because they really got excited about it. And I always worry that the kids are going to get bored. So got a bunch of kids' notebooks and had little bags made for them, and they followed me around. If somebody said, "Oh, I need to talk to you about a thing," I'd say, "Take a note," and they would like, it was kind of great.
And Kaaren, if you had a superpower, it would be best auntie on the planet.
Thank you.
I think one of the things I did was revitalize that everyone come to the Listfield for the big party together tradition in the West. It kind of dribbled away in the a few years before I stepped up, and that was a really key core, maybe the number one goal.
It's
I
funny.
think it was what I was the best at.
It's funny you mentioned that, Adina, because one of my taglines is that the SCA is a fancy dress cocktail party. And the reason I say that is because those Turneyfield Eric parties, you know, the SCA in the West, because of fire risk, kind of became very focused around torches in the middle, like big propane torches in the middle of tourney fields, because it's a lot safer than having fires in your camp and individual fires. And often those weren't even permitted. That the only light at night would be, you know, your gross Coleman lanterns or going to the tourney field. And they were like giant fancy dress cocktail parties. And somebody on one of the lists when I left the West Kingdom was lamenting that the SCA had devolved into a fancy dress cocktail party in the evening and that there weren't any scheduled events or anything going on. And I was like, yeah, that's the point.
Wait a minute. Exactly. That's how it started.
Fun.
No, I was like, those people were busy all day. They don't want to do anything else.
You can have events as part of the big party. There's the core requirements for a good party: light, heat, sound, booze, and interactive entertainment. And so you come up with events, activities that are going on as part of the cocktail party.
Somebody's being lifted or a spoon fight's going on somewhere. I mean, you can just count on it. So
if you do it right.
I always planned some sort of thematic party for my my crown tournaments or my coronet tournaments. I always had a theme party happening in the Royal Pavilion. So it was more than just like the torches on the Eric. It was also something that you could participate in.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, or a torchlight tourney or another party within a party or something that people could participate in so that they had a reason to be there, because sometimes, like, especially like newcomers would have a hard time like just coming out to the big cocktail party in the middle and joining in. But if they had a reason to be there, like the queen said that we're doing this thing in the Royal Pavilion at this time, then I have a reason to be there, and people can't kind of shun me or close me out or be a clique because I have a reason to be there. So yeah, so you give somebody a hook to get into the party, and then once you got them, you got them.
And frankly, if you are on the tourney field and you're not a peer and you don't have a white belt on, it's probably easier for you because you're less of a target. Otherwise, somebody's going to come along and start messing with you. And that's fine. I mean, that's part of the culture of the West, is because everybody's a peer pretty much. And so when you aren't, like if you're not a royal peer or former royalty or sitting royalty, I think you have more fun in some respects because you're not, somebody's not coming along trying to get you involved in something or coerce you.
I think we have plenty of fun.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I mean, it was when we used to do outreach. So Friday night was all about walking around to all the different camps and talking to people and meeting people and inviting them to the party. And if it wasn't me, then it was other members of the court who did it. Going out and actively giving people reasons to feel like they in particular have been invited to come be part of it.
That's very cool. And I think also, Adina, I think about the taverns, and the kind of the tavern culture is also pretty special.
Yeah, I mean, and that's waxed and waned over the years. But yeah, doing that has been super. And I think that we got a lot of inspiration from the folks down in Locock. Because Locock was part of the West for many years, and a lot of us went down there and enjoyed Roni Festival and the Locock tradition of the tavern, and we were inspired to bring that back to the Central West and make it happen here.
Yeah, and get rid of all your spare booze, like the weird
you never
homemade
get
mead.
it. No, because more of it shows up every time. You always come home with more than you go with, no matter how hard you try.
That depends on just how much you provision and what your scale
yes,
is.
where your kegs and things go. But then, you cleaning up the back of the Royal Pavilion, and suddenly it's like a bottle of Benedictine. What the hell am I going to do with that?
Double dirty dog area.
All right. Well, thank you. That is a great answer, but I am going to give you guys a little more credit than you're giving yourselves, because yes, you definitely are all involved in party culture, but I also know the way you speak up for yourselves and others, and don't allow people to be, subject to the kind of abuse, or I know that you're all feminists in your own stripe, and that you don't take things lying down. And I think that that, to me, the kind of the image of a Duchess or royal peer of the West, or the I see them as being sort of Valkyrie or vanguards of like change and making things happen. And so I do appreciate that about all three of you, in your own. You have your own flavor of that. So
you're invited, and you're invited, and you're invited, and you're invited, and you're invited.
Yeah.
You're all invited.
So along these lines, all three of you are Western Paragons of Merriment.
Story.
Right? So what
is that?
Well, sure. Yeah. Explain what that is, please, one of you. And then also, if each of you could list your favorite theme party that you've had, that would be super cool.
Can I jump on the Paragons? So this is the original favor for the West Kingdom Paragon of Merriment, which is a Kingdom Award here in the West for people who are fun. And it was started by Siobhan when she reigned. And it was called the West Kingdom Party Militia originally. And Cyneswith and I were among the first group to receive these. Siobhan told me later she thought about giving ranks. So she told me I was going to be general. But it's better not to have that. But that was that feels really special to me because that was always a priority for me. So anyway, I dug around and I found it. So there you go, the original West Kingdom Paragon of Merriment. And but I'll tell you what, Kaaren can tell her story too. But I think you've got between these two some really amazing, like blow it out Paragons of Merriment. And Dagmar, you've got one of these too, don't you? Did you move out of
He
Kingdom?
had moved.
No, I was Siobhan laureled me. So
I guess
I
that's
think
okay.
I think I was reigning and
You
were.
you moved soon after that.
And,
Yeah.
a laurel's not really as good as a Paragon of Merriment, but it's all right.
that's right. I was made a laurel. I got some other cool stuff. I got to be a swan princess. So it was all good.
You were hella fun. I remember because you were princess when I got to be queen. So it was super fun.
When I was offered my laurel, it was by Jade and Siobhan, and they took me aside the morning after, probably with y'all. We had been, I had pre-mixed all my cocktails in water bottles in my bag so that I had a perfect balance all evening and didn't have to drink any stray booze, but we were being obnoxious. And he took me aside the next day and said, hey, some people have been saying some things about you. I feel like we should talk. And I was like, oh my God, are you serious? And he's like, yeah, a number of people have talked to me. And I was like, oh God, what did I do? And he said, well, they think you should be a laurel. And I actually literally punched him. So, but I was so sure that I was like, I didn't drink that much. Like I was so careful and had it all portioned out. So,
That's hilarious.
yeah, I was a partier, but a careful partier. So anyway.
He loved to do that to people.
Yeah. Asshole. So, it's awesome. So let's go to pictures, and you guys can talk about your favorite, your Paragon of Merriment awards and all of that. But I want to get to the photos because it's already 30 minutes in. So go ahead, and Cyneswith, maybe you could answer Ashaxi's question.
Gosh, what were my favorite blowout parties? There were so many. I think my favorite was the Inception party, which I hosted with Thorfinn the Cruel when we were on the Kingdom Thrones. It was a party within a party within a party because, like you mentioned, the SCA is already a fancy dress cocktail party. And then I had read a historic account of a costume party that happened in the 14th century. And at the time, Thorfinn and I were doing a 14th century reign, and a lot of the kingdom was really in the 14th century. And I thought, let's do a costume party within a costume party within a costume party. So we had a 14th century costume party where everybody came dressed up as Greek gods. So it was there were so many levels. It was like an onion. So that was a super fun one. And you had to like guess who everybody was dressed up as. And I think Megan McAllister, Duchess Megan, was the one who actually figured them all out. And so she's your Greek history nut. And then let's see, what else did we do? We had the casino party at a West on Tier one year, which to this day, we still brag about the blast radius of that party. We had, Dirk was running the casino, and we had, I don't know how many kegs going on, but we got up the next morning to clean up from it, and the blast radius of litter and debris from this party just stretched for miles. Pavilion. And we're like, yay, we're finding little drink umbrellas like clear on the other side of the Eric and way behind people's pavilions. And it was a hell of a mess to clean up, but it was such a great party. It was totally worth it. Gosh, I can't even. There was the assassination party. This was a good one because Thorfinn had read or had heard that in other kingdoms that when royalty leaves the throne, they get assassinated or kidnapped or something happens to them. And that is absolutely not done in the West Kingdom. The West Kingdom is very stodgy. We always step down in exactly the same manner. It's very prescribed. He wanted to do it. And I was like, oh God, we're going to get a lot of like pushback on this.
I mean, I think, aren't the West Kingdom crowns fitted with electroshock?
If you do anything out of line, yes. They will
and it just, yeah.
They phase you. Yes, they will. So anyway, I was like super concerned that this was going to be crazy. And I tried to like kind of divert his attention from this. And I said, I'll let you do it, but only if you spend like the next 2 or 3 hours of the event after you get assassinated lying in state, right? So you have to lie there perfectly still, and I'm going to serve margaritas over your dead body.
And we have some photos
And he went
further
for
on
it.
here.
He
Yep.
went
So just really quickly, before we get to Kaaren, this is an adorable photo. It's not in SCA clothes, but that's okay. I'm sure the alcohol in front of you was just as tasty. Are you at a wedding or something? What is this?
They came to visit me in Portland, and we were just at a McMiniman sitting outside eating tots, as you do.
Yes, that explains the privet hedge behind you. So
Yes. Oh,
Gonna be class.
coronation.
well, let's just look at this photo while we hear, I'd like to hear from Kaaren about her party.
My favorite was Viking Luau. And in my second reign, they had started the Viking Luau, and we did it at West on Tier, and it was a really good party. And then we did it at Pensick, and then they did it at Pensick for a few years. People were starting to show up in Viking Luau clothes, like apron dresses made out of crazy Hawaiian fabric and stuff, and just kind of becoming the West party. It was fun. That was my favorite.
Yeah, that one I love it because that one's a trifecta.
We all,
Like,
yeah.
Wow, is a trifecta.
We all contributed to that one. Yeah.
Yeah, Cyneswith came up with the idea originally.
As a joke, mind you, I did not actually intend for us to have a Viking luau.
And then I did it, even though she was joking. It was my step up party. This is the original favor. But Karen's the one, and that was a hell of a party, but Karen's the one who really created the big tradition with the Pensick and the Viking luau.
Yeah.
It was just so fun. People kept doing it. So, and I was reigning with who she reigned with. So,
Right.
we had
That's
some.
a good story about the last time I went to Pensick and did a Viking luau was right before I was supposed to step up as princess with Evander. And I worked the bar that night, and I just got freaking soaked in Mai Tai, right? Because that happens when you're like trying to serve several hundred people Mai Tais in the dark. I just got soaked with Mai Tai, and it was the same apron dress that I had planned to wear for my stepping up with Evander like the next weekend after I got back from Pensick, and I did not remember to get it dry cleaned. So I was all dried out, and it wasn't too crispy and crunchy, but as people were kneeling in front of me to swear their fealty oaths, you could see the expression on people's faces going, do you smell that? What is that fruit? What is
You
that?
smelled like you smelled like
that, like,
kombucha. You smell like kombucha.
smelling
You
the
were just
dress
ahead
and
of
it
your
smelled
time.
Fine, and then she
I was-
ironed
I
it, and the
stood there
heat
like,
was
you
like,
know, blah, 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 blah. Blah, 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 blah. Don't tell anybody.
All right. Well, speaking of step ups, let's talk about this.
Yeah.
We tried to come up with a Grace and Beauty photos, one for each of us. That
Yes.
you have in your slideshow. It was a little hard for me because most of my photos have me laughing my face off in them somehow. So that's the closest thing I could get to. Yeah, this is my step up. This was the right before the first Viking luau party, and Alderon made this chariot for me to go in on for my stepping up ceremony, and I kid you not, I lost it. How do you lose something that big? I actually lost the chariot somewhere along the years because when I went looking for it to try to give it to somebody who wanted it, we couldn't find it anywhere. So yeah.
And was this Purgatorio?
This was Purgatorio up in the North Coast, and it was super fun. We had a really great time. One of the things that that's me doing the step up. You were there. You were Princess, and
I was
Ob,
Princess of Sinagua with Ob. That's right.
and Ob was there with you, and he and Thorfinn finaled in my champions tournament, and Thorfinn ended up winning. But yeah, I remember that really clearly. It was a really fun event. We had a super good time.
That was a great event.
It was the beginning of a series of parties and me hauling trailers full of booze around to events.
Shenanigans. I think the highlight for me of that event, besides the fact that you became queen, was that Ob was sitting in court and somebody stood up and was doing this beautiful long poem about what stone has value beyond all other blah, 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 blah. And it was supposed to be, the answer was supposed to be jade. And I leaned over to Ob and was like, what are they, is she talking about jasper? And he never took something like that and let it stop at his mouth. So he, at the end of the poem, leapt up and said, Jasper, and totally stole the poet's thunder and also Jade's thunder. And it was awesome. It was my very favorite thing. I mean, I love Jade, don't get me wrong, but it was awesome. It was so Ob. It was so perfectly him to do that. So anyway.
I remember I got my pell at that event and I was like flying high because I was so excited about getting peerage and everything. And I got suckered into taking a kingdom office that very day. They were like, oh, well, service, you'd be great at this office. And I was like, yes, I am awesome. I'll take it. Like, dumbass.
Sucker.
That's perfect. That's perfect. All right. Here's Cyneswith's beauty photo.
Yes.
Regal.
Cyneswith was the one we always wanted to be. Like all of us wanted to be Cyneswith because she was beautiful and elegant and perfect at everything that she did.
So there's something else these two photos have in common. Katinka, that's right. I was looking at that going, hey, there's a sweet face we don't see very much. All right, are you going to say anything about this other than it's you and you look hot?
Yeah, it's me and I look awesome and everybody loves that dress and it was a pain in the ass to beat it and yeah. And it is my goal someday to get the fuck back into it.
You can do what I did, and I just shortened a bunch of my dresses and added nice long gores and panels to things. Worked beautifully. Worked beautifully.
Yeah, those are the long ago days. My best figure ever.
Aww.
Aw.
Oh, I know that.
So there's a funny story here because Uther got carried in on the shield, standing up, all 7 feet of him, 6 feet in the air. And I was supposed to stand up too. He would have liked that, but I was terrified that I was going to be the queen who fell and cracked her head open before she even got the crown, and everybody would see my Under Armour. And so I sat on the shield instead. I'm kind of a chicken.
That was a wise choice.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, if you were really a chicken, you would have been on all fours and it would have been a very different.
Gripping the edges, right?
That would have been a very different reign. Yeah.
I think you look very sweet. So there.
Yeah.
I was terrified.
So Grace and Beauty.
Awesome. That was that same weekend that they visited Portland.
Uh-huh.
This is more indicative of what we usually look like.
It's beautiful. And there's a little bit of Susan of White there, who we also adore.
Yep. Those are her glasses. And another Susan behind her. She's not in the SDA.
I hate having my photo taken and I warned them and they didn't believe me.
I think it's really funny that you still look so pretty with your face like that. I'm just like, how do you do that?
Insane. You're insane.
Well, that's probably established fact. So let's go to this photo because it's adorable. But what I'm curious about is if you guys would like to start talking about how you met.
I'm glad you didn't ask about that photo because what happens in Las Vegas stays.
I don't really have any questions about this photo.
Okay. Move along.
Let's just say that it was in the ice bar at Red Square at Mandalay Bay in Las Vegas, and that's all you need to know. And then there was a lot of vodka involved. That's all you.
We're legally allowed to say.
And we kept our clothes on, unlike some people who were in the group.
Because we're professionals.
Well, okay, so let's start from here. So Adina, how did you meet Cyneswith?
Oh my gosh, I was so intimidated by Cyneswith when I first came to the SCA. She was so elegant and so perfect, and everyone wanted to either be her, and all the boys wanted to be with her. And she was so cool. It was really intimidating at first, although we ran in exactly the same circle. of people when we started. And so, which is kind of a funny thing.
But we kept missing each other.
Yeah, well, Kinswood could tell you, you want to tell them about the Order of the Bridge?
Well, I don't really fully remember because it had something to do with drinking. But basically it was like either I was drunk at the event and being crazy, or Dina was drunk at the event and being crazy. And the two of us like kept missing each other, like being there at different events, like one and then one and one and one. And our friends were just like, how do you not know Dina? How are you not friends with Dina? How do you not hang out with Dina? I'm like, I don't know Dina. And it took years for us to actually sync up and be at the same event and be crazy together.
It was Eric Bjornerson, the Order of the Bridge, and apparently both of us were members. And you can imagine what we did off that bridge to get that order.
Something off that bridge.
Which is totally different than Karen's initial impression of Trish from when they met.
So they were playing way before I was playing, but early on, Crystal took me, I was working with this girl, Crystal, who some of you know, and she took me to an event. And it was a 12th night, and I saw Trish. And I said, I went to high school with her. And I said, I'm going to go talk to her. And Crystal was like, oh, she's a Viscountess. And I was like, I don't know, whatever that means. Turns out she was a Duchess. But anyway, I went over there and I said, hey, we were in homeroom together. And I said, that picture in the yearbook. And she went, shh, shh. People around here think I'm cool. So all these years, and I have never outed her for the picture in the yearbook. But yeah, she totally didn't remember me at all. But I recognized her.
I'm going to out myself right here just for you, Dagmar. This is an exclusive. In high school, I was a giant dork, right?
Surprise!
Surprising no one. So we had like Spirit Week, and one of the days in Spirit Week was Fantasy Day. And so I thought that Fantasy Day would be a great idea for me to like make myself a giant paper mache unicorn head and wear it around school all day.
I think your logic is sound. And also, more than one person has said unicorn in the comments. So now that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
That's really special.
Giant, and there's a picture in my yearbook, which I have since burned. But
well, tell them, what was the picture of? It wasn't of the Spirit Day. It was a club picture.
Oh, it was Club Day, because I was in the historic recreation or reenactment group, or no. Historical Simulations was the name of the group, and it's because they originally started as like a Napoleonic war game group, but they had evolved into the Dungeons and Dragons Club, and I was in the Dungeons and Dragons Club. So of course I wore my unicorn head to that photo. Duh.
Yeah.
Having seen the said photo, I'd say that every single person at Lynbrook High School knew who you were.
I was a giant. And by the time Kaaren caught up with me again, I was beautiful and regal and sophisticated and
Super
the Duchess, and I was the Duchess, right? And yeah, no, she totally outed me.
Yeah.
We
were in the
all
same
have,
neighborhood. So
yeah, we all have things that make it so we can't run for office. It's good just to know what they are. I mean, knowing that you did that already in high school, like you just can absolve yourself of all kinds of civic duty later.
Yeah, I would like it noted that I was not laureled for paper mache, and it was the world's first unicorn head.
I think it was the best.
There was the
so
hat,
so
but what about the hat? Tell them about the hat.
the hat?
That you made from cornucopias.
Oh God, no! Let's not talk about that. That's super dorky too. Let's not.
Okay, but
Moving on.
Kinswith, I would have come over to you in high school and sat right next to you with your unicorn head.
you.
And anybody who knows me from high school knows that is true. So whether or not you would have wanted me to is a totally separate issue. So
She was too cool for me. We didn't really know each other, but
so Kaaren,
yeah.
what's your origin story with these two?
Well, so that's how I met Trish. And then, yeah, we were in the Bay Area together in the San Jose area, and we started hanging out. And I met Adina at a party at her house. I got invited to a party at Adina's house, and And then she moved to Europe for a few years, but when she came back, she was really tight with Sayun and with Cyneswith, and I was hanging out with those guys. And so then we started getting together on Mondays because Adina needed to get out of the house. She had a baby and was feeling like she needed some girl time. And so we started getting together on Mondays, called Girly Mondays.
Yeah.
And yeah, we still get together for Girly Mondays, only it's on Wednesdays. But it's still called Girly Mondays because
I'd like to say for the record that I have no recollection of the first time I met any of the four of you.
I remember meeting you.
I don't.
I
don't
Well, you were
remember it.
very busy. I think
But
it was the
I just-
Thursday.
You just fit into my life so well that I don't
Yeah.
remember meeting
Well,
any of you.
but I had, yeah, like I always saw you everywhere and stuff. But the meeting you was kind of, I don't know if that's when I actually met you, but it's when I remember like the first time really interacting with you. And I think it was the same weekend. I think it was the Thursday before the weekend that Adina stepped up because
Okay.
there was a crapoe, right? A
Ah.
crapoe tournament at your house, and you and Ob were raining, and there were black swans everywhere
Everywhere.
in the house. Yeah.
We'd bought out the Dollar Tree of everything they had with a swan on it.
Yeah, everything was every surface was covered with swans. And I was embroidering this thing, and you said, "Oh, here, you showed me how to do a stitch." And I stayed at the house. Krista dragged me, and then we went from there. We went to the event.
Was that before or after the Children of the Corn incident when the sewage blew
I
up?
do not remember the.
I think that would have been
children.
after, actually, because that was the weekend of that tournament of that Sinagua cornet that was in Calusa,
Oh,
and the sewage pipes,
that
which
doesn't sound
apparently
good.
had been built as a Roman aquifer. I mean, it was like a half pipe with bricks laid across it and then
Oh my
bound by wire. And Helgi and Ob dug up the backyard, and they call the incident the Children of the Corn for reasons that probably we can just move on from here. But Helgi won like major life friend points that particular excavation. So yeah, that was really special.
I don't remember sewage.
I
Okay.
remember meeting a Shoxy. I remember
Yeah.
when I met a Shoxy, I was raining and I went up to Antir, and a Shoxy taught me one of my favorite party games ever.
I have a photo from that weekend later in the presentation I'd like to point out.
I laughed so hard I cried and fell on the ground, and I don't know if I peed my pants, maybe just a little. It was just so funny. But it was this sing a song that you know, but replace one word in the song with the word penis.
Yeah.
Yep. And so Adina was Queen of the West and I was Princess of Snagwa, and we went up to Farragut, which is a park in Idaho, for September Crown. And that particular crown, by the way, Sven won, fighting for Signy. And I know this because we assaulted him at one of the biffs after the tournament when he was crown prince, and he provided us with at least one of our entries for that night in the song, our whatever. It wasn't a contest, but certainly it made us laugh a lot.
It was gamification of the songs and the evening by inventing a contest and inviting everyone to submit a candidate for it. I think in the end we all won, but I don't know. Shoxy, do you remember it better than I do?
I remember, so something that a lot of people don't know about His Grace is that he knows all the lyrics to all of the boy band songs. Sorry for outing you, Your Grace. And so he just, and none of us knew that at that point. And he came out of that biffy and he just started reciting all of these songs like he had been doing it for years. It was truly a beautiful thing.
I mean, he may have been, we don't know, hidden depth in Duke Sven. So, but also we were told to leave the coronet and crown in the tent at one point that evening by the only person there that actually outranked both of us solidly and could tell us that. So, yeah, so that was a really fun evening. And I just want to say for the record, that was the evening of the goat story. We are not going to go into it because I put that story to bed. However, if you haven't do something embarrassing and then you yourself bring it up later and say, hey, do you remember me? I did this thing. There is going to be that story is going to get some legs after that. So
I have one of those.
Oh, Dina has a good one.
I met a Shakti's son, Sam, before I met her. I was visiting on tier when I was reigning and was sitting up next to the king and queen, and they were up front, her family, she and Okta and little Sam, and Sam and I started flirting and playing, and I fell in love with the little guy. What are you gonna do?
And he's Uther size now.
Yes.
Oh, speaking of high school,
Oh, gosh.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh my God, that's our high school
pass
reunion.
Let's go past this slide really quick
Keep
because
going.
that's such a
There we go.
schlumpy dress.
Oh, look at
aw,
I was crown princess. So I think this was on tier West War or West on tier War, depending on where it was.
who knows?
It looks more like it's
It looks like a fairgrounds.
yeah, and that's Kalja. It looks like it's
Looks like
the
a movie fairground.
oh my
Where's
god.
Kaja?
It's a Stromgard event. It's a Norse event over the 3-day weekend.
It could be because we were reigning during that one.
And I can't remember the name of the event, which is horrible. It's my home barony.
But I love this picture so much. But let's just stop here so we can talk about Adina's story that she started to tell.
Yes, tell us about your most embarrassing moment there.
okay, so this is a more typical photo of me. Thus explaining why finding something that epitomizes grace and beauty is a little challenging usually.
I love it. I love it
I love
so
that
much.
picture.
So when Cyneswith reigned originally, there were these two scientists from Trimaris petitioned the Western Crown because they were going to Antarctica to live at the science station for a while, and they wanted to stay in Trimaris. So they petitioned the Crown, Cyneswith in this case, to bequeath Antarctica to Trimaris so they could stay in kingdom while they were there. And Cyneswith and Fabian granted this wish that they would do that because, in the SCA, it's by zip code. And since everything not assigned to something else is the West, kind of by default, and in that era, Australia and Tasmania were part of the West, the zip code of Tasmania was shared down to Antarctica and where the science station was. So they bequeathed Antarctica to Trimaris. Okay, fast forward 5 years. And I'm reading, and I get this letter from the SCA bod informing me that the Crown of the West does not have the authority to bequeath Antarctica to Trimaris, and thus Antarctica will remain a sovereign, land of the West.
Whatever, God.
Which of course immediately made me want to go find out about Antarctica and the SCA. So I got on the internet and I looked up Antarctica, Science Station, SCA, and this newsletter came up on the internet, supposedly written by someone who participated in the SCA, who lived down there, about all the things that they did in the SCA in this place. And they talked about how Brian Blessed came and visited the science station in Antarctica and joined in an SCA event down there. And they had all these photos of the event. So I'm scrolling through this and the costumes were terrible. They looked like two Chucks. Okay. I mean, they were like weird barbarian costumes in this sort of really weird
That's
environment.
what Brian Blessed just looks like all the time. That's
Well,
not,
it's
that
really
wasn't a
weird
costume.
environment. Brian Blessed was there, and it was just kind of they were kind of weird. But I was like, okay, you can't buy supplies to make costumes when you're down there, so they probably did the best they could with whatever it is they had, and I just bought into the whole thing. And then for years further, I would share this newsletter, and the whole thing about the SCA is everywhere, even in Antarctica, with people. Okay, fast forward. So my partner these days is Sir David of Aragon. And David and I were together, and I told him this story, and I showed him this newsletter from the SCA in Antarctica, and he fell off his chair laughing. Absolutely fell off his chair laughing. The whole thing's a spoof. There's nothing true about any of it. They're pictures from some horrible B movie. that Brian Blessed was in, and this whole thing of the Antarctica, SCA, and all of that. It's like the Onion or whatever. But I propagated this this as the God's honest truth for years. So there you go. Speaking of the goat stories and Antarctica, and a callback to Cyneswith and her reign and
I
mine.
mean, God, Shaxi, what a missed opportunity. We could have been peppering all these interviews with blatant lies and urban legends all along and been like, tell the biggest lie you can about your reign or whatever. And we could have just made those part of the SCA Apocrypha forever and ever and ever, but
Damn it.
dang
So
it,
Brian Blessed was at an SCA event in Antarctica. There you go.
that is
So,
awesome.
Dagmar, how do you know that we haven't been doing that?
I mean, it's true. It's true. I don't know. You know, that's a lot of Photoshop, though. I will say one thing we don't have to Photoshop is this picture of Adina. And
Okay.
one of the things I love about it is that you're wearing this beautiful outfit and all these gorgeous necklaces, and your hair is up in these adorable little rosettes,
So it's
and you're holding a rose. Maybe it was a tournament of the rose, perhaps. I don't know. To me, this is my SCA. Like, this is an accurate representation of what the SCA is and should be. Dorks in the clover. So
All I'm missing is my unicorn head.
that's right.
Oh.
So referring back to the laying in state,
Affirmation. Yes. Yes.
I guess lying in state, laying, there'd be eggs.
Full lies.
Reclining.
Yeah. We arranged for one of his friends who was not, a frequent SCA goer and was totally unknown in the mists, really, to come up on stage and stab him. And then he staggered off stage, and then we broke court at that point. And then when we resumed court, he came out, wrapped in all these bandages that had these very realistic looking blood stains. There were actually a bottle of one of my best Merlots, which I had to sacrifice for this. And he laid in state for several hours, and people came and they snipped pieces of his hair off, which was a little bit beyond the pale, and they snipped pieces of the bandages, and people made reliquaries out of them, and people
So
wore
good.
reliquaries from
I remember that. It was funny.
sainted Thorfinn.
And also, he was so quiet.
He was really good at being dead.
Which is
If
weird.
you know Thorfinn and you know how he sleeps, is really not that unusual.
He might be watching, so I'm really hoping he is, because he can't reply at all other than in the comments.
Yeah, that
Um,
was a
He
fun
did
one.
say
And
in
then
the
we just got-
beginning.
And then we got frickin' hammered, because what you don't see in this photo is the giant igloo cooler of margaritas that were right next to him.
The thing I love about this era was the Mad Queen.
Yeah, well, there's a good story of how Thorfinn the Cruel got his name. We were at some principality event, and we were being announced on as the king and queen because, we were just there to be the king and queen, but whatever, it was really a principality event. And the herald, who was Magnus Werber, came up to me before, and he's like, how do you want me to announce you? And I'm like, what do you mean? I'm Queen Cyneswith. And he's like, well, you can be anything you want. And I'm like, I want to be Mad Queen Cyneswith. And he walked us into court and announced us as Mad Queen Cyneswith. And the entire court, Thorfinn is like leaning over going, how the fuck did you get him to say that? I'm like, voice of the crown, man. He'll say whatever I tell him to say. And you could just see the wheels turning in Thorfinn's head. And for the rest of the reign, we gave the heralds like free reign to announce Thorfinn however the hell they wanted to announce him. So he was, Thorfinn the lemon fresh, Thorfinn the friend of furry animals, Thorfinn the shorter than Uther but slightly taller than Billy Two Hawks, and it would just go on these litanies, and the heralds just had a hell of a time with it. You should ask Ellis, because she came up with a ton of them. And they would just go on these litanies of Thorfinn the this and the this and the this and the this, and then at the end it was those and Mad Queen Cyneswith. And so I was Mad Queen Cyneswith. And by the end of the reign, the guy who had gone into the reign as Thorfinn of Rivenoak came out of the reign as Thorfinn the Cruel.
Thorfinn the Cruel.
And you were the Mad Queen, and then you became the Mad Duchess, and then you were the Mad Princess. I mean, that.
it really came in handy at events because, you know, in mornings when I didn't want to like dress up to come out of my tent, I would just like wear my chemise and my coronet and I'm like, whatever, I'm crazy.
I love it.
It was hilarious. You were hilarious. And I missed that rain, but by the time I came back, that shtick just stuck and it was brilliant. And I remember watching you as Princess be the mad princess. And it, you know, you just say whatever. It was freaking hilarious.
Because really the best theater comes out when you have no fucks left to give.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Very true.
So, I love this in this photo, the veneer of care on your face.
Aw, I did love him at one time.
Yes, but also probably you're thinking about all the hair that he left in your drain. So, you know.
Yeah, that was a hard time to get drained in my house.
Yeah. So
I love this.
We were at Pensick and it was pouring rain the whole week. It rained and rained and rained. And on this particular day, we were dunking, somebody brought a bunch of those Seas suckers and we were dunking them in some rum drink and I don't know. And so we're all soaking wet in the rain and there was lightning. So they sent everybody off of the warfield. They sent everybody home. So the guys started coming back into camp and they were all bummed out because they got kicked off the field and there was no fighting. And then there was this, like, you know, all of them were lined up for the showers. And that's Stefana. And she leans over and she goes, "Get the soap." And we started bathing the guys, a bunch of us. We were just like soap. They just took off their tunics. We just soaped them up in the rain. It was raining that hard.
It was the water pressure from the rain was much harder than anything that was coming out of the puzzles in the shower.
You know,
it was
there was
crazy
a couple
rain.
of awnings, and we would tip a little bit of water, you know, for a good like hair rinsing sploosh. It just turned into the best day. And then I think that was the same night that we had the Viking luau party and it was still pouring rain and everybody was huddled under the awnings and stuff. And at one point, Jay just went out in the middle of the rain and said, "Is this all you got?" And then everybody was like, "Yeah, it's just water." And then we just kept having the party and everybody was just soaking wet. And
it's great. I remember people were walking by on the road past West Camp and we're all out there having fighter car wash. And people walking by with umbrellas and in rain slickers and shit. And we're just yelling at them, "Be careful, you might get wet."
I remember that guy. He was wearing like a yellow Gorton's fisherman, like the leggings and the boots and the hat and the hood, all in yellow rubber, you know.
Give it up, buddy.
"Be careful, you're gonna get wet. Do you want to come and camp?" And he was like, "No, I'm okay." Oh. And then he felt just like, you know.
It just went on that whole day because it rolled from the crazy rainstorm and the soap and then the party. And then we were so loud and obnoxious. Someone got nervous. Oh, we're going to be in trouble for being so loud and obnoxious. So then we just started yelling outlands.
So that's hilarious. I'm going to move us on because we're going to run out of time because Cyneswith has a D&D session tonight. So I'm going to go to the next photo.
Well, but giant dork. But I'm not wearing my unicorn head tonight.
I mean, that's what D&D stands for, right?
Oh, but I want to just, can I just mention this since I go to this photo?
Oh, yeah.
Yes. So in the West, when you go to a foreign war, oh yeah, you have the picture. Here's mine. When you go to a foreign war, we have a tradition of giving people an award called Defender of the West. And so we were at Pensick and we had that whole crazy thing and being so obnoxious and yelling outlands because we thought people would blame the outlands who were next door to us for us being so obnoxious.
Like in the morning when I got up and, you know, there's a mess, like there were huge trays of hot dogs and buns from I don't know where, like someone had gone and stolen them or I think that the story was like the middle was we were still awake and we were still noisy. And so they brought us the hot dogs and
shut up.
Crazy, like a bunch of misbehaving.
So Kaaren came up with a special award for all of us who participated in that, which is what this is a picture of. Kaaren, what's it called?
Offender of the West. And Fleeg was in on it and he said, you know, in court the next day, he said, you know, there was His and Her Majesty really need to talk to you guys about behavior. And we said, last night was out of hand. As we got up in the morning, there were bottles of Tylenol. Like, where did they come from? There were trays of hot dogs. Where did they come from? You guys were yelling Outlands. It wasn't them. I don't know. There was all the shenanigans, right? We were like, and then Fleeg pipes in very, with the court of, there's a new award and blah, blah, blah. And those of you who participated in this shenanigans are now offenders of the West. And then, it was super fun.
That's awesome.
And of course, it's not an official award. It never was anything but.
Oh,
the,
did it!
the hat.
I was told perhaps we should say who wore it best. And so.
Oh my God.
Continuing in my tradition of super dorky headgear.
Oh my God, you looked
I needed a
amazing.
giant double horn hennin. Yeah.
You looked amazing. And I was so jealous that that Uther and Candace got to do this and not me. Because I was just going to step up, an hour later. And,
Oh my God.
I asked, believe me, I asked. And he said no.
No. But the best part is how she made that hat.
No, don't tell them these things.
There's no.
Don't take my Laurel back. This is my Laurel costume, mind you.
Oh, okay.
It looks
Okay,
fantastic.
we'll talk about the cornucopias
Totally
from
did
the
a
dollar
cheeky
store.
thing on the hat.
What's wrong with making them that way? I mean,
I
I've
don't
done
think-
worse. Plastic canvas and styrofoam bells and all kinds of stuff.
I don't say it because I think it was wrong or horrifying. I think it's very clever and funny that she made them out of cornucopias.
I think you looked spectacular that day. Like
Those
really
were weird
regal and glamorous.
horns that I picked up at like a dollar store after Thanksgiving.
And think of all the recycling you can stash in there for
Right?
the deposit. It's amazing. And I just thought this was such a great
wow.
picture of Tim Curry as the devil.
And yeah, and there I am. Okay.
This is super cute. I love
Oh, that's
this.
a good one.
I think Ronnie's
an
watching
Estrella
right now,
party.
by the way.
I
What?
love that one.
I think Ronnie's watching right now. And also I think that's Phoebe off to the very edge. We can just
Yeah.
see her
Oh yeah,
part of
there
her
she is
face.
Yeah,
behind Wendy's hat. And
And
there's
Tane and
Janae.
Janae and
yeah, that was definitely an Estrella. That was a fun event.
Yeah.
this is
At
great.
that party that what did she call that party? She did it every year. I don't know.
Mimosa?
Anyway,
Mimosa Thursday? That one?
say it again.
Is it the mimosa one?
Yeah.
Ah,
Mimosa
you
party.
can go past that.
Okay.
that
Hey,
one.
wait. You might recognize that coronet on Susan. Is that Susan? No, that's me. Oh, shoot.
That's you in Susan's coat
me
and
in
my
Susan's-
cornet.
In Susan's coat. And I've never owned my own coronet. I've only ever worn Cyneswiths or Karen's. And
Everybody's worn Cyneswith those. so
and
that's-
what a slutty coronet. I'm sorry. I
It is-
promised I wouldn't
it
use
is.
that word. And then
okay, as long as you're not using it about me.
no, I know, just the coronet. It'll hit sit on anyone's head. And but I have this one. This is Karen's. This was her county, and now I get to keep it.
Eric
long
Helm,
term.
Eric
The
Helmschmidt made
joke
that.
about this cornet, you may recognize, and everybody out there is thinking, why is Cyneswith wearing Ciella's cornet? It's not Ciella's cornet.
It's not Ciella's cornet.
And I wore it too.
Adina wore it too, and so did Susan White, and so did
I've never worn it.
Stella Flynn, and many, many, many other women of the West have worn this cornet. So many so that we joke about like having our names engraved on the inside, and then as the names get to be too many, we're going to add rings like the Stanley Cup.
Oh, I thought you would just X them out. Like
No,
Drive
we're
through.
going to add rings like the Stanley Cup, and eventually it'll be like this. tall.
nice. I embroidered mine.
Oh, that's
I
cool.
love that one.
That way
It's so blingy, it's stealthy. You can't tell
It
it's
is.
a all right. Well,
Mine
this
was
is a
made
fab.
by my guardsman, Catherine Blackheart. Isn't it lovely?
it's
This
I
is
very
made her a
cute.
belt, and she made me. Oh, look.
Speaking of lovely,
This is Penzic too, right?
Pensick. Yep. There's Pensick. We were going off to do the grand court on stage, whatever thing, in our kingdom colors.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of photos of you processing, and it's really cool.
Oh, yeah.
I love
was
this
a
photo.
good-
oh, look at those two.
We were in Napa.
Yeah, that was Napa, huh?
It was either that or the wine ride at Disneyland.
No,
No,
we were
it's
in Napa
Napa.
with
Tasha.
with
Tasha was there, right?
Olja and her aunt, who
Yeah.
lives there and works at a winery there. That was
That was
the
cool, right?
the Rat Pack party at some
Oh,
12th
yeah.
night
In Ontier.
in Ontario.
I love that photo.
Yep.
That's my favorite picture of you, Trish.
I love that one.
Kids with.
Yeah. I look all Mona Lisa-y, but I'm really trying to like pretend that my elbow doesn't hurt because I fell down and broke my elbow the night before.
Oh,
Oh.
will you wear it well?
Yeah,
You
thanks.
didn't spill her drink.
I love this one.
I do
This is-
too. So
This
cute.
is David and I, and back in the early days, David and I were often the last ones up at a party, at events, and then he left for a while. I always had a thing for him, and in fact, it was in Ontario. It was at an Ontario West where I first really realized that I had a big thing for him, and but it never quite happened, and he disappeared for a while, and then he came back 8 years ago, and I was so happy he came back, and then we've been a couple for almost that long now. But this is the first time that David fought for me in a tournament. So that's what this captured, the first time we walked up in a procession, for the beginning of a tournament together. And we do a lot of laughing. So that really is a great example of what this is.
I love it. And when sometimes when people get together and everybody's like, oh, that totally makes sense.
Well, it's funny when I was
No.
when I was 22 or whatever it was, I don't know, 20 originally, I remember some friend pulling me aside and saying, I don't know if you should get together with him. I don't know if that's a good idea. And they were, of course, totally wrong.
Aw.
But yeah,
I
he's
remember
pretty.
you talking about him when he was not playing, and you guys would talk about him, and I never had met him, but I remember you talking about, I had the biggest crush on this guy back in the
I
day.
love, I always loved David. And when I heard the rumor that he had been seen, there'd been a sighting after a bunch of years, I remember thinking, oh, I'm so excited. He might come back. Like, and at that point, I was just like, let that guy come hang out with us. That's all. Like, I was super excited. Uh-oh. That was him, actually.
Well, we have another super adorable photo of you guys. Aw.
Aw.
You guys are almost the same height when he's on
I was
his
just thinking
knees.
that.
I like tall blondes. I've always had a real weakness for tall blondes.
It's one of the things I've always really appreciated about you, Adina, is that we're pretty much the same height. That doesn't happen very often.
Can I have a copy of this one? I don't know that I have this one.
I'm sure I got it from your Facebook photos.
Oh, yeah?
Or from
Yeah.
the history site. It's probably up on the history site.
I think, yeah, but I think I went through your photos, so somebody probably tagged you. So, and I realize I'm going to give away the answer here, but in the spirit of the notes that I was given, let's have a bit of trivia and say who first published the words of the crown, no quiet hours, bring earplugs as some of their words of the crown to the populace.
I don't think that's hard to guess at all.
No, I think it was
we all
Kaaren,
know.
right?
Yeah.
It was Kaaren.
Oh yeah, I
Right.
wasn't there. I was attending a lecture on decorum that day.
It was.
I went to bed early. I wasn't even there.
It was totally me. Because in the years before I stepped up, there'd been such a, of course the cat meows now. There'd been a kind of a super heavy quiet hours thing and kind of a kibosh on the parties and things. That was me. Who did that. And I also, I think, have the honor of being the person with the highest tax deduction ever for 501c entertainment donation expenses for alcohol. Over the course of my reign, because I was dumb about it too. I used to fill up trailers and haul stuff to events. So yeah, it was important. So yeah, no quiet hours, bring earplugs. And some people really loved that. And some people were pretty mad at me for that, but most of them forgave me eventually.
Thanks, David.
I love that. I think also the reputation that you amassed around yourself. Some of it not deserved, because all you were really doing was amplifying what already was, I mean, what other people really wanted. And I think that's something that's special about you, Adina, is that you have the ability to sort of say, hey, I know you really want to have a good time, so let's do this. Like, you're not coercing people into it. You're just kind of giving them permission to,
you know, creating a space where everyone could come out and just be themselves and have a really good time and be creative about it and feel unfettered in just that explosion of joy was really it's a goal. You know, it's kind of a core motivator. There's a person who shows up over the years here in the West who was one of the signature people who really blossomed in that environment, and that was Jeffrey Scott. He had never held an office or a title or a position or anything. And I asked him to be on my guard. It was his first Queen's Guard. And Jeffrey embraced it with great abandon and glee. And you know, and then of course, just did so many things in the years since then. He was a great example of just creating an environment where people could feel welcome, invited, and free to, you know, be creative and be fun and create that fun environment.
He's really a magnet for that. Like he rigged up an oven from a camper so that he could bake cookies with propane at like on a Saturday night. So people smell those cookies baking and just like flock to his camp, and and they just would bake cookies all night. And he's always inventing things. We call him Sir Gadget.
I mean, the booze whacker was probably his.
And the booze whacker,
Booze whacker, yeah.
Oh my God, yes.
A weed whacker engine or motor attached to a blender.
And
I remember that war.
These days, it's very civilized, the booze whackers. But the original booze whacker, he had to ride it like a horse. It was this thing that would just, he'd have to like throw his leg over it and get on it to hold it in place because it would bounce around. So he'd pull the thing, the lever, the thing.
I mean, I would consider that more of a feature.
He eventually built it into this big wooden box.
Yeah, no, that was the sound of a good time when you heard the booze whacker go.
Yeah.
Nice. Speaking of good time, this looks like oh wait. See, now this is the reputation we get as an
We're not none of us are in that.
I mean, no, there's
Adina is.
I'm on the end.
But I love that Brock is in it too. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Was this when Brock and Mari were Prince and Princess?
This is that 50 year celebration.
Yeah, I do. I mean, but it is the you look at the history and expertise and everything that this photo represents, you know, I thought it was kind of a special view. And also it's so California.
Yeah, right.
Because look at the
it looks like it could catch fire at any minute.
That's right.
We know which side of the valley it's on because one side's green and the other one's brown.
Yeah, it's like, oh, you know, maybe don't wear spurs. It might spark a fire in the tall grass. So yeah.
Oh my gosh. So that's Richard of Aldertree. And before anybody thinks there's something untoward going on, his wife took the picture. And he was checking on me because I woke up in the morning and there were 1 million yellow jackets in my tent because they had put my tent over unknowingly over a nest. And so a bunch of guys just came and like everybody picked something up and they just moved the whole tent over. And so he was just coming back to check on me, I guess.
And it's rat, so something untoward is always happening.
Right.
You know, it's a story that really is told in a single photo of him standing there in his surcoat and tunic with tennis shoes.
And you know, he was like whispering in my ear just terrible things with his wife standing right there and laughing.
Completely harmlessly terrible.
No, totally harmlessly, but like, yeah.
So, and those for those who don't know him, he is called Rat, and that is by
Richard of Aldertree.
Yes, that is by his preference. So
yes,
I love this photo too.
Oh my god, there's me and Helgi. This was at the crown where we did Obadiah's memorial, and it was pouring rain. We were just, he's not sweaty, he's soaking wet. And yeah, we were just
Put a
in the
tribble
rain.
in your hand.
Is that what?
Is it a tribble? What is it?
Yeah, what do you?
I was wondering that. I think it must be a hat. Oh no, it's the end. It's my gloves. I have some felted mittens with fur around them that Ula made.
Very
And then there's, see the cherry pie favor that
Yeah.
for all the
on
guys.
his belt, the cherry pie favor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
David wears one too.
And
that
you can see
Kaaren
my
made.
cherry pie. I made for some of the girls. I made
Tell
I
us
don't know what you
more
call it.
about your cherry pie.
So Obadiah
Kaaren.
is a friend of all of ours. And his armor was, for those of you who don't know, was this sort of woven leather and red leather behind it, and it looked like cherry pie. And all the guys called it cherry pie. So there were just little patches I made of woven leather on these red pieces of wool, and we all wore them on his memorial. So
And some people still wear them.
I still have mine. See,
Regularly.
you can just see it peeking out. I made a thing like for across our Viking dresses. Anyway, I got that hat, that nail-bound hat in. Oh, there's me
It's Kaaren and David.
David.
It's too cute.
getting me.
You can see the red on his belt. That's another cherry pie favor.
Is it? Oh.
Yes, he always wears it.
I just thought that was too cute. And there's Ob, not in his cherry pie, but
Oh,
was this your?
Call back.
Yep.
That looks like the same day from that other picture.
It was same dress. Yeah, that was this is the one where we were stepping down and Ob was following us. And then later I got my duchy in that dress. But that was Ob and Kira stepping up, and they were releasing us. And you can
I never
tell
knew
that
Kira.
Fabian still has hat head from the Crown of the West there.
Right. And a big red mark on your forehead, probably.
I have a permanent cowlick, and my bangs do a funny thing in the front because, yeah, the Crown of the West has dented my forehead.
Yeah, the old ones were very heavy. That's why we did
Oh my
purple.
gosh, and that was my stepping up the very, very first time and making Duke Christian Glaive a duke because he preceded us. As the second king.
Fabian looks like 15.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does. He was adorable. I was so stressed out and so nervous, and I put so much energy into making those houppelons, and Mari sewed his, I sewed mine, and I was just like, first time stepping up, I was super nervous about everything. And then comes the morning of the event, and Fabian steps out of his tent and goes, "Look, I gave myself a 14th century haircut," and he had given himself the total bowl cut. And I was like, you did what?"
Did you use the words "you look like an idiot" or did you hold your tongue?
I died a little inside, but you know what? It worked out fine. He looked fine.
It does look fine.
So good.
I can't believe anybody would give themselves a 15th century bowl cut hairdo on the evening of their coronation. What?
The bold move.
Bold move. Bold move.
How very authentic of him.
So, Adina,
Yes.
would you tell us about the golden shovel, please? As we move to a photo of you wearing all gold.
Oh, yeah. So we mentioned that Kaaren did the Offender of the West. I also did a funny award when I reigned. There were, one of the things I love about the SCA is we have great storytelling, and we have such a strong tradition of storytelling. And then it's almost like that Star Trek, episode where they're trying to figure out how to talk to the aliens, and they do everything in this historical story metaphor model. Darmok and Shalad at Tanagra or whatever it was, kind of thing. And we have a number of really good, funny storytellers that we all enjoy very much at events. And so I invented an award I called the Order of the Golden Shovel. And I gave it out to a number of people who were highly entertaining storytellers. Thorfinn, of course, was probably the principal of the order. because of Thorfinn vision and the storytelling. What we've learned, for anyone who's followed his storytelling, we know that there's always a grain of truth in there and a lot of embellishment, which ends up with something that one is highly entertaining, and two, if you feature in one of his stories, he always makes you sound really cool.
Much cooler than you are.
Much cooler than you really are.
Did any of you notice that the little subtitles that are scrolling on the screen here, when you said Thorfinn, it put endorphin,
Oh, did it?
Yeah.
That's funny.
which I think is appropriate.
That's
Like
funny. So
earlier when you
yeah,
said- when you said Dagmar and it said dang mares.
Fitting, very appropriate.
that's the order of the golden shovel, but I didn't write it into law or anything. It's not official. I gave it out to a few people, and then I left a bunch of extra tokens in the token box when I passed it on to my successors. And Fabian and Brand immediately turned around and gave one to me. So I guess because I kept telling everyone that Antarctica, SCA, and Brian Blessed were real or something.
Well, so speaking of Antarctica, I'm gonna speed through the rest of these photos. What's with the snow apes?
Okay.
While we look
So-
at this picture of Dina.
This is before I even stepped up, I got in trouble. And it just taught me that there's always someone listening when you have a crown on your head. So there we were at the Coronet tournament, and like after hours, and there was some pavilion where they were playing 3-man or something, and it turned into a game of strip 3-man. And it was getting down, there were just a few people left, and somebody said, what are the losers going to have to do? Because it was 3 people left. And I leaned over, I kind of whispered to Vitas, I said, what, like run across the Eric naked or something? And somebody said, oh, Her Royal Highness has decreed that you must run across the fighting field naked. So of course it was, why can't I think of her name? Kaaren. Gisela and Thorfinn and Connell. And Connell was like terrified that he was going to lose, but he didn't have to worry because like Thorfinn and Gisela couldn't lose fast enough because they were so ready to go run across the fighting field in the middle of the night naked. No one's awake. No one. Like it's so quiet. And he, except the constable who just happened to be awake going to the bathroom. So the next morning, the constable had seen these snow apes running across the fighting field and went to the seneschal and said, and I quote, "Are we going to have an Adina situation on our hands?" And the seneschal knew me and said, "No." Like, have you met Kaaren? He didn't decree anything. Don't worry about it. It's going to be fine. But yeah, I
That's
laugh.
awesome. Speaking of which, here's your Hobbit phase, I believe this would be.
Look at
Who,
you.
mine?
It's always kind of hobbity.
I love it.
This is when I was in Drakenwald. I'm in my armor and with one of my Drakenwald buddies. I'm just really
Perfect.
short, and you put armor on it. It gives me a really strong horizontal element.
Yeah.
So
No center of gravity.
I look like a hobbit, and I have hairy toes too.
I love it.
maybe there is
Same.
something to it.
Same. Cute.
Oh,
Nezda.
we
Another trip
went
Port-
to visit Tori in Seattle.
Yep.
That was fun. Fun trip.
Wonderful.
road trip.
Oh, there's Obadiah.
Aw.
That's a good one.
That's before I had bangs. This was not long after I met Ob.
I've always had things.
No.
That was Thorfinn and Carol stepping up
Ah,
to Dagwa as Prince and Princess. Yeah.
so lovely, wonderful
And
memory.
again, somebody will look at that and go, "Isn't that Ronnie's dress?" And no, it was my dress. She just
And
wore it
Ronnie's-
better. She wore it
and-
better than I did.
Obadiah's wearing her coronet too, because she
Right,
wears.
and Tom's wearing her cornet. I mean,
Yeah.
she just looks better in it than I do. So
So
now,
Dagmar, I think this is shortly after you and Ob slept on the floor of my tent.
Yeah. Nothing happened. And also,
right?
I didn't realize who he was till I woke up and saw his regalia on top of us the next morning. So,
Wow. Love it.
and then we go to this, which is probably my favorite picture of Kaaren ever.
I went to some feast and I didn't know anybody, and Bronwyn was cooking and she said, "Hey, you want to help?" And she had all these, she used a bunch of egg yolks for something and she had all these egg whites left. And so I like ran to Target and bought that mixer, which is still in my kitchen, so that we could she made some meringue thing. And yes, there's some wine.
I love it.
Yeah.
This looks like Purgatorio also.
No, this is Crown.
Oh, okay. Okay.
This was Crown when I reigned. We're being presented with the Grand Poobah
Is that
hat.
Jeffrey Scott?
No, I think it's actually Benjamin in this case.
Oh, of course it is. Yeah.
Or is it Jeffrey Scott? No, I think it's Benjamin.
No, it's Benjamin. Yeah.
Yeah, but I thought it was Jeffrey Scott at first glance too, but then Jeffrey wasn't a knight then, so it couldn't have been him.
Oh, good point. Yeah.
And you'll notice everyone's laughing. Like you can see Ellis is cast back laughing and I'm laughing. And it was a glorious moment. That I think was possibly the drunkest night I've ever seen in Kingdom of the West, because I gave as Queen's favors to all of my guard. I gave all of them Tablero drinking game sets.
Yeah.
Here's the one etched shot glass with my A on it that I still own, that I think Cyneswith, you are the one who did the etchings
I
for me.
helped make those.
And so everyone got a Tablero set, and Duchess Bryn was captain of my guard, and she stood up before Crown and announced that the entire guard was going to take all comers, that they challenged the entire kingdom to Tablero games and the Tablero tournament, and that they were determined to take everyone on. And that was the whole guard was out with these giant tables, and I think that was the first time we had the big propane torches at a party, at an Eric party was that Crown. And they proceeded to do their darndest to take down the entire kingdom. It was hilarious, completely outrageous, and then it was really amazing. It also ended up with possibly the most disgusting cleanup I've ever seen from a Saturday night party.
Sounds like there's several gatherings in the running for that. So you guys will have to hash that out sometime.
I don't want to win that one. I just know it was really something the next day. But I'm very proud, and they decided to do it. So there you go. I just was an enabler, nothing commanded, just enabling.
So I'll have to make sure I let Stephanie know that this photo's in here, because she lives up here too now. Yeah, so she and her husband and their 2 kids live up here, not too far from me, actually, maybe like 10 minutes away from me. So
Loud Legging Day at some point for Annette. I don't remember who's.
Love it.
Yeah, that was a Stephanie and Carol thing, and they roped me into it. Loud Legging Day.
Love it.
Love it.
This is really pretty.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. So I was getting my Duchess coronet. This one right here.
It's a great photo. And then we thought we'd end on this because it has
Shaxi. Shaxi and Fiak and Adina. Oh my god.
That was the day and night of laughter, of intense laughter.
Yes. And there's Fiak, and I thought,
oh my gosh,
we never get pictures of Shaxi in these
Where did you
presentations.
find
look
that?
how cute you are.
I have a hard copy of this, and I have some other photos from this event, but this is the one that I thought was suitable for sharing.
Wow.
Yeah.
So,
So I love this so much.
Adina has all bling
Awesome.
and tassels.
Yeah, I love this. That was the day I fell deeply, madly in love with the Shaxi.
Aw.
Yes. Hard, same. I've fallen in love with her many times over, but she is infinitely lovable. So we're at 6:37 now, which is over our agreed upon end time for Cyneswith's geekery. So
He's fine.
I think we've gotten to all the points on your list.
Adina's list.
But there, with the exception of the best advice to new royalty, who wants to cover that?
Cyneswith has the best advice to someone who is ready to become queen or princess. I think hands down.
Okay, well, you have to know that in the West, we used to have a book that got passed on from queen to queen. You leave it on the throne as you were outgoing, so that the incoming queen could pick up this book of advice from former queens, and know everything she needed to know magically to rule a kingdom. And when it came my turn to write in the book, I couldn't think of anything to say. So I thought of the one thing that I learned the hard way during my reign, which was don't drink everything that's handed to you.
I did a lot of fake sips. Delicious.
Yeah.
I just say no, thank you to all of it. I don't care even if it's something I think I'd like. I'm like, no, thank you. And that if it doesn't come from my own cooler, I just don't drink it. And that seems to really work out well for me, because both for quality control and also I don't want dysentery.
Yeah.
It's just not.
My favorites are, and I get this from Rat a lot, speaking of Rat, my favorites are like, when they hand you something and they go, God, this is disgusting. Try this.
No.
No, but you can take a little sniff and hand it back.
Right.
You're right. That smells terrible. I don't want that in my mouth.
Yeah, no.
And
like
also,
the first couple reigns to pass.
and we talk a lot about alcohol and a lot about drinking, but the reality is you've probably heard me say this before. I look at alcohol or anything you put in your mouth as being on the consent continuum. You get to decide what you drink, when you drink, how much you drink.
Yeah.
You should never feel pressured. And if you do feel pressured, I hope that you have a good enough relationship with that person to go back to them later and say, you were pressuring me to drink and that didn't feel good to me, because
It's not okay.
it's not okay, because it is on the consent continuum. It's happening to your body. So I think just to get that out there to anybody who might be watching,
and
both.
the only time that I had a problem with that, like normally I will say no if I know I've had enough, and that's it. I'm pretty good at setting boundaries. But the one time that came back to bite me in the ass, I was asked to judge a cordial contest.
Mm-hmm. Me
You
too.
have to taste it, right?
Oh, hell no.
If you don't taste it. But I remember like being at this contest and they went to pour one out of this bottle and it was sort of a mauvey purple and it came out in clumps.
No.
Like,
No.
what?
No.
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 It
No
tastes
cordials.
very Pepto-Bismol.
I don't judge alcohol contests or original poetry. Those are two things I'm very firm about.
Really good advice.
Yeah.
That's my dark secret is I don't like a bardic and I don't like going to vigils.
Ooh.
Oh, I love going to vigils. Actually, those are super fun.
That's a good admission. Do either of the rest
That's
of you
my dark
admit?
secret.
Yes.
I don't go to vigils either.
I don't like going to vigils, but when I do go, I have one piece of advice that I use on every vigil, regardless of who's getting pierced. And that's that I tell them to read the rules. And I think I started doing that even before I spent a stint as Kingdom Seneschal, because there were so many times when people I knew, peers, who were bending the rules because of something they didn't like. And I was like, you are swearing in your oath to uphold these rules and you don't even know what they are. You wouldn't play Monopoly if you didn't know what the rules were. So why are you going to swear an oath in front of all of your friends and family that you're going to uphold these rules?
Good one.
So
Okay, I
hate going to vigils, but when I have to go, that's what I say.
Okay, I love vigils. I think they're super fun. So let me tell you a couple of vigil moments. One, the only other time I fell down the ground and tears leapt out of my eyes from laughter, like horizontally from the earth, okay, because I just lost my mind, was a vigil up at Antir Westfor, and Turi went in with me. It was Sayun and Artos and Turi and I went in, and it was Brennis, and she asked him deadpan, if you had to, what was it? It was something about your scrotum being severed. And if you had to reattach it, would you use duct tape, a rivet, or actually, I can't even remember what the third thing was. And she did the whole thing completely deadpan after this very serious little vigil conversation. And I like just tears shot out of my eyes, horizontal to the ground. I laughed so hard, I about fell on the ground. Yeah, that was a moment. So that's a vigil moment for me. And then my other vigil story is years ago when I first time I went to Pennsic was when Christopher of York was knighted. And Christopher of York was my first consort in a tournament, and I was his just that one time when we were both stupid young. And I was there, and there was a vigil, there was a party going on in the camp while he was sitting vigil on the other side of camp. And I had just discovered by the way, you shouldn't have to drink if you don't feel like it, and you should always control your drink and do the right thing and be healthy for yourself. But in this case, I had a bottle of ouzo and a bottle of root beer, drinking a slug off the ouzo with a root beer chaser, which I had learned from someone in Ontario, by the way, as a thing to do. And
Horrible.
carrying that around.
But person's probably getting dialysis as we speak. So let's just be real honest here.
Okay. And I was at Pennsic, and there was a big circle of people, most of whom I didn't know. In fact, okay, let's be honest. I knew Rat, he was there, and Stacy, I think, and that was it. And they were playing a dirty form of Rochambeau called Let's Get Fucked. And that Rat had taught the whole crew. And I was there with these two bottles, and we decided that I forget if you won, you got to drink, or if you, I forget, it was something, anyway, there was a whole reason why suddenly there was a drinking game with my two bottles. And I introduced this ouzo root beer thing and started passing it around to people. All right, so that was hilariously fun, and we were loud, and people told us to shut up because we were interrupting the vigil and being too loud and obnoxious. So fast forward a few years, I'm in Drachenwald, and I have a bottle of ouzo and a bottle of root beer, and I'm at Double Wars, and I walk into a group at Double Wars with these two, and someone's like, "What are you drinking?" And I said, "Well, I've got ouzo and I've got root beer, and if you take a hit off the ouzo and then you do a root beer chaser, it's super awesome." And this guy, Duke Matthew Blackleaf, who lived in Drachenwald and reigned in Drachenwald, said, "Oh my God, the last time I drank ouzo was some blonde chick at Pennsic walked in with ouzo and root beer and got me completely shit-faced." And I laughed. I said, "Was that Christopher of York's vigil party?" He goes, "Yes." I said, "That blonde chick, that drunk blonde chick was me." Nice to meet you. And Matt and I became really good friends, and we're still really good friends. And he sponsored me into his company to write my thesis work when I was in business school over there. And, and we're really good friends to this day. So there you go.
Fantastic.
Vigil. So vigils have actually a really special, warm place in my heart as a place. And then the advice I give to people who are in that position, whether it's, regardless of what the peerage is, and I say the same thing to anyone in the Rose meeting as they're preparing to step up. And that is, at the point where you step into being a peer, your role changes in the SCA forever. You change from being a participant in a really wonderful community, in a really wonderful, fun place, to being one of the hosts. And you will forever be a host. Now, for what it is we do, you'll always feel like you are part of what makes all of this happen, because you are. And I think that is like really gut level, fundamental shift that happens for most everyone who goes through that transition. And it's a beautiful thing.
I like it.
Yeah.
That's a nice, serious answer.
Master Grendel is the source of the ouzo root beer thing.
Thank you.
They call it.
All right. So he's probably not having dialysis, but also Grendel is a muppet of a human and can drink probably all of us many times under the table. So maybe be careful where you get those things from. I'm just saying,
I always lived my life dangerously, especially when I was younger.
Right? I've got a kidney and liver of a Greek goddess. I'm good.
Wonderful.
Thanks for all those years of SCA training.
So
Lightweight.
normally at this point in the interview, I'm starting to talk about the fact that we would all be sitting in a grand court and there would be a gift basket exchange of some kind. And there would be a ceremonial awarding of a virtual gift basket to you that we would have carefully prepared with your interests in mind after having quizzed your people about what your likes and dislikes were, and make sure that you got things in your basket that were customized for you. However, a few things. First of all, I'm not giving you gift baskets. You guys, between the three of you, have received way too many gift baskets and probably don't care. But I will say no gift basket should ever have a handle on it, because baskets with handles are the devil, and you can't pack them in your car to go home.
That's true.
So,
True story.
so yours would be in whatever form is most meaningful to you, be that a Pokemon ball or a bread bowl or whatever you want. So that's number one. Number two, normally I put in like wine and chocolate and puppies or kittens or whatever. You guys,
Not what you put in a gift basket to me.
you can all procure your own whatever. That is not, you know yourselves well enough to not have to have somebody else buying wine for you. And you can always come up to Washington and buy your own. So instead, I am going to award each of you with your own tagline, and then what a collective gift I wish I could give all three of you. So I'm giving you a tagline. You can choose to keep it or not. So Adina, your tagline is, if you can't be a duchess, be a cautionary tale. That's my gift to you.
Thank you.
Cyneswith, yours is, I make this look good, but I stopped going to events, so who cares?
Oh, brutal.
And Kaaren, your tagline is basically Mary Poppins.
Mary Poppins.
Mary Poppins
Mary
is my
Poppins,
favorite.
Yo.
That's just it.
Cool.
So, and yes, this may have been some harsh truth, but it's also the actual truth. And my wish, if I could, is that we would just have an island we could all go to without any COVIDiots on it, and could just go and laugh until the tears are spraying sideways out of our eyes, and we're desperate for a bathroom but don't want to break the seal, and are just like and just are hurting ourselves with all of that. And you are some of my favorite people to be sleep deprived for. The West Kingdom was so fortunate to have you and to have your reigns and what you brought, and your kindness, your attention to the people of the kingdom, and the legacy that you leave. And this was like the biggest treat, and so I really needed this. And so this was all about me, obviously, and what my needs were. This was so much fun, and we really appreciated. You guys gave us almost 2 hours of your time tonight, and thank you so much. Shaxi, do you want to say anything?
Just echo what you said, and the three of you, well, the four of you really are just such badass women and such fine examples of human beings. And all of you are vaccinated fully too, which is super exciting.
As of today, yes.
Shenanigans might actually be in our future,
I know.
So that makes me very happy.
Yeah. So any parting words from any of the three of you before we go into our ending shtick?
I would just like to say that in no way, shape, or form would we all be in a court where we are exchanging gift baskets. We all know it. We'd all be standing at the back of the hall, being loud and inappropriate, and being shushed by heralds, and we all know it. But it's kind of like that anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, she speaks the truth. So if we all ended up at an event together, that would be pretty remarkable. So
yeah, that would be cool.
Well, Adina, thank you for being the instigator to get these other two wonderful people with us this evening. It really means a lot to me that you were able to talk them into it, and that you guys consented. I know this wasn't your first choice of how to spend your evening, so.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and as always, thanks to the Sisters Interview Network for hosting us here, and do join us next Monday at the same time when we talk with Eleanor de Bolton, and that's going to be a lot of fun too. So thank you again, all of you, for being here. We love you. And
thank you. We love you more.
Thank you, and thank you, Kaaren and Cyneswith. I couldn't have done this without you.
Fun trip down memory lane.
Now I have all these photos.
Woo! Good night, everyone.
Night.
Bye.
Thank you.